something
It's
up,
so
you
similar
know?
with music, like even recording. Like
Mm.
I'm going through that now. Like you record something, you think it's amazing, and then like 6 months later, you're like, that was trash. You're like,
As you improve, you look
yeah,
back.
it's like, oh
Uh,
no. So
uh,
yeah, it's just part of it. I think, yeah, nothing's ever really finished. You have to just release it and then grow from there.
I suppose that's the truth
Yeah,
for like any creative work. If you ask Van Gogh,
yeah,
what's your favorite painting you've ever made yourself, and he's like, everything is shit.
everything's terrible.
You
Yeah,
know, like he hated it all. You know, so I suppose he didn't hate it all.
yeah,
Very disturbed man, wasn't he?
very strange. Yeah,
uh, well, since I'm not sure whether we're recording or not, but I'm just gonna go for it.
yeah.
Uh, I'll start off by telling you a funny story
Okay.
of SND itself.
Yeah.
You are our first ever uh, local artist, Mathew Rodriguez, and SND Studio was not in existence until now, obviously. And when I first got to work with Ruan Fenter and SND and whatnot like that, I thought SND was a compressed word for sound, and I just thought they took the OU out, so I thought it was SND Studio, and I was like, oh, that's clever.
That's very clever. What does it
That's
stand
risky.
for?
Yeah, it's risky, but it's SND Studio. But it stands for Sound Never Dies. You know.
Oh, that's cool. I
Yeah,
didn't know
and
that.
when I heard that explanation at their official opening launch, I was like, that makes a lot more sense.
That's
That's
pretty sweet.
so much cooler.
I also I would also be like, because I'm like that. Like I'll see abbreviations and I try and make it into one word in my head. Yeah, I didn't think about that. That's it. That's funny.
All right. Well, what do you say we jump into the first question?
Yeah, sure. Are we
Are
rolling?
you in
Cool.
a band, or and what do you do for? Do you have any other jobs outside of music that you pursue in order to sustain yourself?
Yes, so I am a photographer full time. That's my job. It's my day job. So yeah, I've been doing that for about 4 years now since I left school. And music is like my number one like passion project.
All right,
So I'm
fantastic.
pushing my music as a creative outlet as well as photography, but photography is more like business orientated. And then yeah, my band, I record under my own name, so Mathew Rodriguez, and release music like that. And my band consists of a bunch of musicians, also local musicians who have their own projects, but we kind of just come together and work on my music and we tour together. So it mainly consists of Theo, Mulder, and Johan Thron from Cloud Inc. So they play
All
drums
right.
and keys for me, and then I have like revolving bassists. I've had like 5 this year.
All
But
right.
yeah, always trying to get different friends in to play with me, and like Louis was my first drummer, Louis over here in the room. So yeah, it's always like just a mix of friends, and yeah, even when it comes to like recording the music, always working with different friends and producers and stuff like that. So yeah,
That sounds really nice. What a bunch of friends just
yeah,
collaborating.
it's really
Have you
cool.
heard what they said about collaboration versus competition?
No,
Well, they say competition makes you marginally better, but
yeah,
collaboration makes you exponentially better.
definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
I think like even just like Johan, my drummer, he's he's an incredible guitarist. That's his main instrument, and just from jamming with him and watching him for like the last 3 years, I've gotten so much better. And just I kind of he's pretty much my reason. I like all the chords I play and everything is just based on what he showed me. Basically, like I taught myself guitar, so it was like, but on YouTube, just kind of from about 18, 19. So I don't have any like music theory knowledge. So a lot of what I do is just based on jamming and hanging out with friends and yeah, making music together.
That sounds
Yeah,
like a fantastic career to be in.
yeah, it's fun.
Awesome. Well, where did you grow up? Are you local to George your whole life, or did you move down here?
Yeah, so I was born in Denver, Colorado, in the States.
Oh,
And then my family, we immigrated to South Africa when I was a kid. So, and yeah, grew up in Wilderness where I still live.
just a second. Just trying to read what I said here. Uh, oh yeah, okay. This is a good one. This is one I'm very interested in. Do you remember your first ever gig or experience with music?
Yeah, so my first gig was actually with Louis over here.
Oh, nice.
We played was at a school event. It was my first year out of school, and Louis and I were jamming together, and we'd been practicing for like weeks for our first gig. I think it was the Eden Extreme or Eden Experience or something like that, or Earth Hours, some kind of event for Glenwood. They were having it at the Botanical Gardens, and it was to like I think like it was actually quite a big gig. It was like to like 50 people, and we only played I think like original songs. It was like that was the first gig I ever played, and it was actually really really cool. But looking back, I still have videos from that gig, and it's like it's so funny to see like how far we've come since then. But yeah, it was actually a really cool experience, and I've played like hundreds of terrible gigs since then, obviously, but that's just part of it. I think it's like part of getting started. But our first gig was actually really cool. We had a really cool first gig. Yeah.
What would you say was your your deciding factor? What was the one thing that pushed you uh, to take the leap of faith into the industry of music, or was it a lot more organic? Was it just something you ended up doing, or was it a decision you took to just jump into it?
I think it was very natural. Like I only started with music quite late. Like most of my friends, they've been playing since they were like 10 or whatever. But yeah, like I only picked up a guitar and started singing. I only discovered I could sing when I was like 18, 19. And then from there, it just felt really natural. It was never like a career goal or something. I was like, I'm going to be a musician. It was more just like, I love music so much and I just want to play as much music as possible. And it's really the same with even with photography. It just everything came naturally. And then I think like your talent eventually makes room for you. So you develop your skills and you're like, okay, cool. Like I'm actually good enough to go play this gig or, shoot this content or whatever. And it just, it expanded from there. So yeah, it was a very natural decision. And yeah, even now, I don't really feel like, it's my career. It just feels like my passion. It's like an extension of me. Yeah.
Wow. All
Yeah,
right.
which is cool. Yeah.
Would you say you are more talented or hardworking?
I think it's a combination of both. You can't, I think people that are talented but lazy won't get anywhere. Like you have to have a good balance of both. So yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people that are incredible musicians, but they don't ever give music the time and they'll never write a song, they'll never actually do anything with it. It's just kind of like it's like having a lot of head knowledge but not putting it into practice. So I think it's definitely a lot of hard work and yeah, just a lot of practice and even playing gigs and stuff. Like you get into a routine and habits and you know what to expect and it's like muscle memory basically and you kind of grow from there, I think.
Oh, all
Yeah,
right. Well, that makes sense. The Bruce Lee theory of fearing a man that practiced one kick 1,000 times.
definitely. Yeah.
So that's it applies. You know.
Definitely. I like that.
Um, would you say when you were in your early developmental stages, uh, were you under the impression that artists and all other creatives alike that try to break into the industry that they have this one big break moment, or do you think it is an entire um, force of effort throughout your experience as an artist that gets you somewhere? Would you say there's this one big monolithic moment in your career that just shoots you through, or and if there is, have you experienced something
I
like that
think
before?
I think when I started, I definitely I was under the impression, like someone watched you at a gig and it's like some label guy. I always used to think there was like this one big break, and I think for some people that it is that way. But the more I've been like in the music industry and just observed bands that are successful, even in South Africa, I've noticed it's mostly like a bunch of small little punches over a long period of time. And I feel like you can never really settle. You're always chasing that next big break. I think like when I started, for me, a big break was just playing my own songs to an audience that cared. Like that felt like a huge thing. And then like since then, I got to open for Beatenberg and like Diamond Thug and like successful bands in South Africa, and each of those gigs felt like a huge step for me. But I think if I had to just sit back and be like, oh, I did that thing, then after a while, it's not relevant anymore. So you have to consistently try and like find the next thing. And yeah, just also I've noticed like even those bands, like they're incredibly successful internationally even, and they're so humble and they're very hardworking, and you can tell that they haven't just like rested on their laurels. They're kind of always pursuing something new and like trying to, I guess, grow their audience in new ways. So yeah, I mean, I think for some people it's probably a big break or someone discovers you, but it's also just hard work and little steps at a time. I think. Yeah.
Uh, I recently watched that the movie on the band Queen,
Yeah.
right? And I can't help but agree with what you say, because if I think about it, the biggest gig they ever got to organize was close to the end of their career,
Yeah.
and they seem to have built everything up from small punches, as you said,
And that must be so much more rewarding as well, because it's like I don't know, it would probably
finale.
feel yeah, it's like a perfect story. You don't want to
Yeah.
just like start it with a bang and then fade into nothing. And I think that's what happens with a lot of like that's almost the trend now
Mm.
with especially with the way we consume music is we eat everything up as quickly as possible and then throw it out and look for the next thing. You know what I'm saying? So
That's so true. I'm guilty of that.
yeah,
To
I think
such
everyone
an
is.
extent, it's so
Yeah,
bad.
for sure.
uh, who would you say, or what would you say, in case it's a who or a what,
Mm.
is your biggest inspiration when it comes to you making your music or any other of your creative processes? Do you even have one?
Definitely, I think like the first the first thing that made me want to pick up a guitar, my aunt had this John Mayer Live in LA DVD, and that was the first time I was always into music, but not really. Like that was the first moment where I was like, wow, I want to play guitar. I watched the video and it was incredible. He's an amazing guitarist and musician, and I was like, wow, okay. And from that moment, I started playing guitar, and I think my inspirations just change like as I grow and I think I'm always inspired by like I said, my friends and the people I'm surrounded by, the bands I play with on a regular basis. You're always learning and picking things up from each other. Um, and then in terms of like, I'd say like my music and style, guys like Mac DeMarco, he's got like a really laid back approach to music, very DIY. It's kind of that philosophy of doing, kind of trying to make the best of what you have and not necessarily always trying to have like the best equipment and gear or knowledge, but actually just maximizing what you have at your disposal. And he's been very successful like that. And then bands like Men I Trust, they also, I mean, they're playing huge venues all over the world and they don't even have management or label. They do everything themselves and it's all based on their music, you know? So I really like that DIY approach to music. And also, yeah, just I guess the people in my life and like all my songs are very personal. So it's always a story or some like a relationship, things like that. So yeah.
All right. That's that's quite the rogues gallery
Yeah.
of inspirations. Speaking of inspirations, what bits of advice that you've taken throughout your career as a local artist so far,
Mm.
what bits of advice do you have for those considering to make the big move into the industry or trying their hand at it?
I would say for local artists, something that was important for me was kind of, I mean, when we started out, we had to play a lot of cover gigs, you're playing a lot of bars, pubs. And I mean, I get for some people that's really cool, but it got to a stage where we kind of decided like we wanted a little bit more than that. We wanted to be able to perform our own music. We wanted to have audiences that were actually into us and not just the cover we're singing. So making the decision to kind of switch our focus was really important. And I'm saying we because it wasn't just me, it was my friends and I, like the whole group we were in, we shifted at the same time. So I definitely say just kind of decide what's your priority. Like if you're wanting to play cover gigs and that's cool, like focus on that. But if you're wanting to kind of express yourself with your own music, then make that shift. And then also just, I guess, finding your sound. Like I feel like I'm still doing that. But I'd say it's important to kind of take your influences and then kind of create something that's unique to you and personal and different that people can be like, wow, you know, I've never heard that, you know, that's you. I mean, yeah, like I said earlier, just like those little steps, like be very persistent, and you're gonna play hundreds of terrible gigs before you get to where you're wanting to be. So yeah, just don't give up. I think it's easy, very easy to give up. I wanted to give up a lot of times. I mean, there were some shows where I was like, should I even carry on? You know what I'm saying? But it's so worthwhile. I mean, we did some shows recently in Cape Town, and the first few times we went to Cape Town was so tough because no one knew us. We didn't know any of the venues. Like we had never experienced that before. But because we had like now some knowledge of how it works, like this last trip was amazing. We played such cool venues. We had such good turnouts. The vibe was amazing, and like it was so worthwhile. Like that short 30 minutes of playing was so worth it. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, just persistence. I think like definitely.
I think that's one of the hardest things to overcome is that fear of rejection.
Yeah.
And ironically, the only way to get over the fear of rejection is to expose yourself, put
Yeah.
yourself out there, and get
Definitely.
rejected over and over until you don't
Just keep putting
fear it
yourself
anymore.
out there. Yeah.
Unlike being afraid of heights, that just stays. You know.
I'm terrified of heights.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
goodness someone understands.
Yeah.
Why bungee
It's like
jump?
my whole body just like freezes. I'm like, whoa, what's happening?
All right, well, Matthew, the mic is yours to
Oh, cool.
tell our practically zero base of followers, you know, what you have going on in your life, in your career, and your creative process, and what would you like them to know? What do you have coming up?
Sweet.
Stage is yours.
Yeah, so we've actually just announced a tour with Uncle Spike and Cloud Inc. We're doing a garden route tour this December, so we've got a bunch of shows. We're playing down the coast. As far as I know, we're going as far as Nature's Valley. We're going to play out there at Backpackers, and then we're heading back through Wilderness. We're doing 2 shows in George. And yeah, Uncle Spike's a really cool band. They're like a five or 6 piece band, I think, from Stellenbosch. And it's like such a cool eclectic blend of music. They've got like Afrikaans songs, English songs, rap songs. They've got a sax player. It's jazzy, it's rock. It's like a bunch of stuff. So it's really cool. And Cloud Ink, they're quite well known in the Garden Route area. They're really cool indie rock. They're playing all of their new songs as well. So it's going to be really fun. Really excited for that. And yeah, I'm just working on demos and new tracks at the moment. I'm not rushing or forcing anything at the moment. Just trying to find something I'm really happy with. And yeah, we'll hopefully be releasing some music next year. So yeah, that's what's happening.
Are you on Spotify or SoundCloud?
Yeah, I released a single. We actually recorded some of it here at SND. And yeah, that came out in February. So you can find that sooner or later on Spotify, SoundCloud, Tidal, whatever you're on, Apple Music.
We'll leave links in the description.
Links in the description of the podcast. Yeah, so that's out. And yeah, I'll hopefully be releasing some new stuff soon.
All right, well, thank you very much, Matthew, for your time. And on that note, we will leave it from Matthew. Thank you very much.
Thanks, man.
Keep it together, compose your face, expect the weather to rear its head again. It's been 3 years, I haven't changed. Oh, all I do is wander around the same. Oh, all I do is wander around the same. But sooner or later, time will catch up with me. The beating, the breaking, the in-between. Am I losing all control of this now? Am I losing all control? Am I losing all control of this now? Am I losing all control? Without feeling pain, or so they say, or so they say. But sooner or later, time will catch up with